so that she can have that when she puts it. And we're live.
We're live.
We're here. Oh, and hey, everybody. Welcome to the next Minute with the Ministers, where we sit down and talk about the Sunday from sermon. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, so let me turn that down.
I was wondering what the squealing was.
I think that's me. But we're also we want to have a public service announcement just for a minute. I am currently getting Facebook messengers from some of you all in the congregation wanting me to access or wanting me to apply for grant money. And or my favorite scam has been so far where someone will email you all under my name with a fake email address saying, I'm in a meeting, you can't call me, please go buy gift cards. And so I want, if you're listening to this, I want you to know if we ever need anything like that, that's personal, we are always going to call you or come see you. We are never going to send something like that in email. So if you ever get anything from one of us, because it happens more frequently now, from one of us as a staff member needing gift cards or money, just know that is not from us. Let us know so we can be aware of it in case anybody else gets out that information. But
not in an email, but in a YouTube video, we may say, hey, it would be great to have a $20 local Lime gift card so that we
right. If I'm standing here saying it, then yes.
Yes.
Now the best, Rylan, though, is they say, hey, I'm about to go into this prayer meeting, so you can't call me, don't talk to me, just respond to this email and send me the gift cards. And I was wondering, because I've sent you 3 different rounds of gift cards, you haven't even acknowledged it when I do see you. So I was a little upset with that, but.
So this person wants to know if they can forward an agent link to me right now. And I'm going to say, apparently someone at Little Rock Church is about to have surgery on May 15th. So I'm going to say, no, I'd like to talk about it in person after your surgery.
Well, I'm willing to wait for my $100,000.
Yeah.
I don't need it super fast.
Yeah. So basically a church member or a church member whose Facebook has been hacked is messaging Rylan saying, hey, have you heard about this community block grant money? And Rylan's like, what was your first response? No, tell me about it or something.
Yeah. It's
so
obviously
they go, hey, I've got $100,000 and you can pass this out. And Rylan's like, well, give me a call. And he's like, and they said, no, I'm about to go in for ear surgery on my eardrum. And they told me
May 15th.
So I can't call anybody.
I can't call anybody because of my eardrum. And so, yeah. So if you are a church member and you are having eardrum surgery, please let us know other ways besides Facebook Messenger.
And I tried to go to this person's profile and it doesn't exist. So something's wanky going on with it. I don't understand it all, but I just told them I'm going to miss out. They said I had to text the agent before it's too late and I'm going to miss out. So that happens. And the drama's unfolding live on YouTube, which is not why we're here to talk. We need to talk about the thing that we're talking about, but it is fascinating. So Sunday we were in Acts chapter 10 and talking about this beautiful story about Peter, Cornelius, and the working of God. And I mean, I got a lot of good feedback from Sunday. And one of the things that I heard from several people that they love about this story was also Cornelius's and Peter's resolve to follow the will of God. Like they obey God. And I think that's a beautiful point that we could explore at another time. But I just love that people, from what I could tell, we're kind of into this story of God's work there in the lives of these two different people. And it brought up themes about kind of us as a congregation, and in my life, those that I'm called to love, and Peter's expectation of how God works. And then Peter, he's an apostle, he's a leader in the church, and he's told to go see this Roman Gentile. So John and Dave, like what as a follower of Jesus, that's what we are. And this is kind of Jesus's, when he says you'll be my, you're going to go to Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria. This is kind of the Samaria. This is the on out. What does that mean for us as Gentiles who are in America, thousands of miles from Jerusalem? Do we continue that kind of Great Commission? Are we the focal point of that Great Commission? What does that mean for us, like in terms of diversity, and what it means for a church like Little Rock Church?
There's like 3 questions there, I think.
Yes.
That's good. I think on the first level, we do need to ask, why did Luke, when he was writing Acts, feel like this was an important story to tell us? And I think you're right, is that it is beautiful that, hey, you need to go to this outsider. And I think the first level, we often miss how challenging that would have been, to go and have that conversation in the first place. And so I think, it's almost like if that wouldn't have happened, then would, those of us that are Gentiles, would we even know the gospel? Would we even know about Jesus if the stories like we have in Acts 10 didn't happen, And so there is a kind of a level of thankfulness and gratefulness that the gospel did continue to spread like that, so that we could even know the gospel, I guess, as Gentiles, so to speak. We definitely are not, we're far removed from that in a lot of ways, So I think that's kind of my first response to it is, I'm kind of grateful and thankful that, we even know the gospel because the disciples and the followers of Jesus were obedient to do that in the first place. But I do think the challenge is for us to do that too. That's a model for us. So it's what do you say? It's a descriptive, describing what happened, and also prescriptive. It's kind of telling us what we ought to be doing too, So yeah.
Yeah. And with it, there's, so many things happening just in the narrative itself. It's a Roman who, they've been the people who have just been the heel on their throats for so long, while at the same time you get Luke's writing, who gives us this background stuff of not just what was said to Peter and in Peter's invitation in, but also what was already said to Cornelius from the angel of the Lord. And there's this piece where you're really kind of having to even struggle with how much in my engagement with someone who is not like me, or someone who is being invited into this kingdom, has already had an experience, or has already had communication, has already had something around that the Lord is just prodding him to something, right? So like Cornelius has been prodded to Peter to get this understanding, maybe to get some teaching, but just also to kind of really reveal to Peter, like, this thing is exploding. And one, God is in front of him. Like, it's not just the whole group of disciples going out into Samaria, but it's like the Spirit of the Lord is already out there and just kind of bringing them in. And it's really neat to see, but encouraging for us that it's not just, hey, I got to go and be the sole bearer of Christ to those outside of the kingdom, while Jesus comes in and his explosion of the kingdom is out there. But there's just this people who have ignored it or are not allowed it to speak to them, while there's probably still some others who have just, hey, it's there, but I just really don't know what to do with it. So who do I go talk to? Who's in front of me? Who allows me to come into their house, be invited into a meal that explores the kingdom, explores discipleship, explores who Jesus Christ is a little bit more for me?
Yeah. So John, it's almost like you're saying, from just an evangelism kind of question, is we're not called to go anywhere that the Spirit isn't already there and at work, right?
Well, at least in this story, there might be other places, but there's just that sense of intimidation that can be probably relaxed a little bit of, man, is there just this insight, these questions, these other things that are coming to these Corneliuses that are in our lives that are just, hey, absolutely beautiful story where the Spirit of the Lord, the angel of the Lord is talking to him and be like, hey, go visit this guy because you have been devout. You've called out to me before. And you may not understand the whole Jewish history and everything that's happening. And even you may not understand who Jesus and his fulfillment of all of that comes in to be, but I can lead you somewhere, Cornelius, for you to hear that.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point. Like Peter, he comes in and he fills some of the gaps for Cornelius. But Cornelius is definitely, from Luke's perspective, and I don't like to use the word, but quote unquote, like a good guy, or like he's trajectory, like he's on the right trajectory, which I think is more important than sometimes we give it credit for. D.M. Lloyd Jones, he used to always say, don't worry about how you got in, just be thankful that you're there. And like people get very concerned about the order of things, so to speak. And, it's just, man, just be glad you're on the trajectory. And part of the Spirit and moving and, and all those are powerful points. And then the other thing that came to mind that in my notes I wanted to talk about more, and I just didn't have time or didn't want to take the time Sunday. But this idea there at the end, that one little phrase, then they asked him to stay on for a few days. Just like, man, what a great, you could almost do a sermon or a whole lesson just on that little phrase about staying for a few days, and this kind of hospitality that takes over, that it goes from the movement of God, the Spirit of God falling on these people. They get baptized. Everybody's just amazed at what happens. And then this very practical form of Christianity, of hospitality. So in a COVID world, what does hospitality look like for us? Since, it's kind of different than it was in Jewish context. What does it mean to be hospitable?
What's a social distance hospitality look like?
What a great book.
Yeah. I was talking with one of our house church leaders Sunday, and he was sharing a story of, he said, you kind of have your house church meeting, and that's what, you're kind of flowing through a study, or there's a little bit of structure there. You have a prayer time, and everyone's there, and the kids are have their stuff going on, and then that gathering kind of concludes, it ends. And he said, there's always those people that kind of stick around afterwards, that they stay. And he's like, sometimes those are some of the more significant conversations, and so as you're sharing that verse, I thought, yeah, it's even with COVID and all the safety and social distancing, and the fact that our gatherings and meetings are not nearly as frequent as they were before, but there's still opportunities that you can sit and talk to somebody socially distanced, even masked outside, even, and it was cold yesterday, but we were in the sun, it was fine. But I just think that those are important too, not just the scheduled things and the structures things, but those things that happen after the meeting, those kind of conversations, to where, you can talk about Jesus and the gospel and what God's up to and those kind of things. And I think those become special. I had a meeting yesterday with someone that was not on the calendar. It was not scheduled. It was very impromptu. I just kind of showed up. But it was a rich conversation. It was a good conversation. We both were kind of blessed because we were just together, again, outside, spread apart. But, so it's almost like we have to think smaller even than we were before, but it's like God can still work with a few people having conversations, talking about the Bible, so.
What about you, John? What does hospitality look like for the follower of Jesus?
Yeah, I'd say during the season, like my wife and I have invited people who do feel comfortable, be it inside, coming into meals, being at our table, that you will run into people who absolutely have that ability. And then you run into people who just, and other families who have turned us down. But I think in that, instead of the assumption of, I can't be inviting, I can't do this because it breaks these protocols, that there is just a little bit of like, well, let me just ask. And then it becomes, there's the effort, the peace, and it's them, one, knowing, hey, someone is reaching out to me, and then someone is looking out for me, but I respectfully decline because I need to protect either my health for a business standpoint. I mean, we've had some house church members that are just kind of in the context of meeting inside just doesn't work for them, but being outside would absolutely work. And so it worked for fall. It's gotten a lot colder and there's just been more hesitation. And so the ability to just kind of navigate and be a little bit flexible on what's happening, what's going on, I think is a big piece for us. You see, well, I lost my train of thought there, where I was going with the next.
It was really good.
It was
so
really
good.
It was so good. No, what I hear you saying, and I think it's true, like part of hospitality means also respecting people's space. So like that, just what you had said about if they're comfortable with it, and we almost have to be more aware of that, or just, everybody's at a different place and that's okay. And I think my word, to myself, for those who feel differently from me on the issue, like I'm pretty relaxed about it. I think there's a chance. I think it's very real, but I'm not as worried as some people but I want to be very sensitive to those who are. And with the masks and the distancing, and And I feel like that to me is a very hospitable thing during COVID, I think.
And even just respecting like their approach to it because of the different what different outcomes they have of just some. I mean, it is absolutely because of a health issue. Some of it's because of a business issue. Some of it's because if it's a dad or a mom who doesn't get to go to work for those 2 weeks or whatever, what it does to their family. And so when you look at some people who are like, well, they seem young and healthy and they shouldn't even be worried about it. But you're like, no, there's so much more behind this that I have to allow myself to just be gracious. And I think where I was going with earlier was just a little bit about our church and its hospitality way or venue of we feel like, man, sometimes we're just opening it back up for worship and for that engagement. But what it becomes in a sense of hospitality that allows people to come back. And I've always used this kind of term of like hallway conversations. It's where it's like, I'm not really diving deep with all the members here, but boy, being able to see them in the big space or being able to pass them by and just say a hello or to say a little checkup or say something in a 2-minute conversation builds that hospitality a whole lot for us. And two, it's engaging. Two, I think it just replenishes a little bit of that joy and that need of being around some people, especially for me being an extrovert, kind of like, hey, I need to get some just some hellos, some hallway hellos in where it's not absolutely, hey, I got to sit down with this guy for the 30-minute or the lunch, but just being able to pass a few others and say hi to Tim McAllister or Bernie or a few others allows that sense of hospitality to come in that the church is doing, that as we are open. And you're right, we miss a lot of people who aren't able to receive that same kind of hospitality because they need to be home. They need to be watching for their health. They need to be watching for their business. They just are really, really busy in what's going on. So I wouldn't, the question there would be, I wouldn't know how to extend a great hospitality to them. So,
yeah.
I wonder if, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. I was just thinking, we think hospitality, like being together and sharing a meal and, in a living room or at a coffee shop or that kind of stuff. But I'm just thinking, the point of hospitality more than anything is just there's an openness and there's a connection. And so, I think like even now it's like, well, I can't go to their house. I can't have them over, but I could call them, like you can pick up the phone and you're calling someone not just kind of transactionally, like I don't need to get this information or give you information. I just want to I want to check in on you. I want to open my heart and kind of see what's going on in your world. And it's amazing that I think that kind of falls under the hospitality umbrella too. So maybe we just kind of need a bigger picture of what hospitality can look like during COVID. I just think about, there's been more conversations that people have had with their actual neighbors over these last 6 months than we've had in, years. Because you can do that safely, and I think that's a hospitality thing, kind of an opening yourself up to be a blessing to the people around you, and so there is some of those stories that are coming out and some hope that we have, some neat things happening still. So
that's awesome. That's very, very good to think about. And just to come full circle from where we started, the conversation with the person at church is over and they were not able to help me. I asked for some money. There were fees I would have to pay to apply for the grant. And I said, since they had money, could they lend me some? And they said, no.
They couldn't cover your fees?
They could not cover my fees or talk in person.
My goodness.
So sorry. And, but on a serious note, we will never, as we said at the beginning, we will never be asking for money from anyone in that forum. So I've got plenty of gift cards. I don't need any more. No,
I'll quit sending them to you.
I'll take more gift cards. Just I don't need you to go get me anybody in the church, and it happens. Anything else before we go? Anything we've got coming on? We've got anything going on? I was going to say we've got a nursery open for those who have not heard that, unattended. And I think Sarah got the TV going on, so the service is back there.
Yeah. The sermon or the service is streamed back there, which is super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the big room. It was the toddler room earlier, but we have a big room that has the sermon has the service being piped in there, being streamed in there. And so if you're coming as a family, you're coming in just your kids needing that piece of rest or just needing that ability to just run around in a room, feel free to come in there. I want to say that we all do apologize for not seeing that need earlier. And when it came up, it was just like, hey, that's absolutely something we need to jump on. And to say that, to be an invitation for anybody else who feels like, hey, I feel like this is a part that's missing. And us being three guys who are probably not just thinking outside of what's happening for our lives, that you may come and approach us. Hey, this could be beneficial. This could be helpful for me or for others, that you're being able to look out and allow us a dialogue and see, hey, is that going to be something that's going to be COVID friendly? Is that something we're going to be able to execute safely for us as a church? Absolutely. Bring those up to us. That, man, we're all trying and trying to figure some stuff out. But once we heard that, there's a need for a changing room, there's a need for an unattended nursery for kids to be in and just kind of like explore without parents thinking they got to be quiet because everyone else is around. And we want to set up those things that you feel great and successful on your visit here too.
Oh, that's great. Great word to end on. So we'll just end with that. Love you all, everybody. Love you, Little Rock Church. And we'll see you, Lord willing, Sunday. And if not, next week, call us if you need anything.